Hello, welcome to the stream or to the VOD if you're watching later on. I apologise if there are sort of knocking or wind noises in the background. The weather here is fairly appalling at this exact moment in time, unfortunately, and I am not in a soundproofed room. So, without further ado, might as well get on with the adventure of the engineer's thumb. Of all the problems which have been submitted to my friend Mr. Sherlock Holmes for solution during the years of our intimacy, there were only two which I was the means of introducing to his notice, that of Mr. Hatherley's thumb, and that of Colonel Warburton's madness. Of these the latter may have afforded a finer field for an acute and original observer, but the other was so strange in its inception, and so dramatic in its details, that it may be the more worthy of being placed upon record, even if it gave my friend fewer openings for those deductive methods of reasoning by which he achieved such remarkable results. The story has, I believe, been told more than once in the newspapers, but, like all such narratives, its effect is much less striking when set forth en bloc with a single half-column of print, than when the facts slowly evolve before your own eyes, and the mystery clears gradually away as each new discovery furnishes a step which leads on to the complete truth. At the time, the circumstances made a deep impression upon me, and the lapse of 2 years has hardly served to weaken the effect. It was in the summer of '89, not long after my marriage, that the events occurred which I am now to summarize. Second paragraph, and I'm already messing up. I had returned to civil practice, and had finally abandoned Holmes in Baker Street rooms, although I continually visited him, and occasionally even persuaded him to forego his Bohemian habits so far as to come and visit us. My practice had steadily increased, and as I happened to live no very great distance from Paddington Station, I got a few patients from among the officials. One of these, whom I had cured of a painful and lingering disease, was never weary of advertising my virtues, and endeavouring to send me on every sufferer over whom he might have any influence. One morning, a little before 7 o'clock, I was awakened by the maid tapping at the door to announce that two men had come from Paddington, and were waiting in the consulting room. I dressed hurriedly, for I knew by experience that railway cases were seldom trivial, and hastened downstairs. As I descended, my old ally, the guard, came out of the room and closed the door tightly behind him. "I've got him here," he whispered, jerking his thumb over his shoulder. "He's all right." "What is it, then?" I asked, for his manner suggested that it was some strange creature which he had caged up in my room. "It's a new patient," he whispered. "I thought I'd bring him round myself when he couldn't slip away. There he is, all safe and sound. I must go now, doctor. I have my duties. Just the same as you." And off he went, this trusty tout. We'll look that up later, without even giving me time to thank him. I entered my consulting room and found a gentleman seated by the table. He was quietly dressed in a suit of heather tweed and a soft cloth cap, which he laid down upon my books. Round one of his hands he had a handkerchief wrapped, which was mottled all over with bloodstains. He was young, not more than 25, I should say, with a strong masculine face, but he was exceedingly pale, and gave me the impression of a man who was suffering from some strong agitation, which it took all his strength of mind to control. "I'm sorry to knock you up so early, doctor," said he, "but I've had a serious accident during the night. I came by train this morning, and on inquiring at Paddington as to where I might find a doctor, a worthy fellow very kindly escorted me here. I gave the maid a card, but I see that she has left it upon the side table." I took it up and glanced at it. "Mr. Victor Hatherley, hydraulic engineer, 16A Victoria Street, 3rd floor." That was the name, style, and abode of my morning visitor. "I regret that I have kept you waiting," said I, sitting down in my library chair. "You are fresh from a night journey, I understand, which is in itself a monotonous occupation." "Oh, mine, I could not have been called monotonous," said he, and laughed. He laughed very heartily, with a high, ringing note, leaning back in his chair and shaking his sides. All my medical instincts rose up against that laugh. "Stop it!" I cried. "Pull yourself together!" And I poured out some water from a carafe. It was useless, however. It was often one of those hysterical outbursts which come upon a strong nature when some great crisis is over and gone. Presently he came to himself once more, very weary and pale looking. I've made a fool of myself, he gasped. Not at all. Drink this. I dashed some brandy into the water, and the colour began to come back to his bloodless cheeks. That's better, said he. And now, Doctor, perhaps you would kindly attend to my thumb, or rather to the place where my thumb used to be. He unwound the handkerchief and held out his hand. It gave even my hardened nerves a shudder to look at it. There were 4 protruding fingers, and a horrid red, spongy surface where a thumb should have been. It had been hacked or torn right out from the roots. Good heavens, this is a terrible injury. It must have bled considerably. Yes, it did. I fainted when it was done. And I think I must have been senseless for a time. When I came to, I found that it was still bleeding, so I tied one end of my handkerchief very tightly round the wrist and braced it up against it with a twig. Excellent. You should have been a surgeon. It's a question of hydraulics, you see. Came within my own province. This has been done, I said, examining the wound, by a very heavy and sharp instrument. A thing like a cleaver, said he. An accident, I presume. By no means. What? A murderous attack? Very murderous indeed. You horrify me. I sponged the wound, cleaned it, dressed it, and finally covered it with cotton wadding and carbolized bandages. He lay back without wincing, though he bit his lip from time to time. How is it? I asked, when I had finished. Capital. Between your brandy and your bandage, I feel a new man. I was very weak, but I had a good deal to go through. Perhaps you had better not speak of the matter. It is evidently trying to your nerves. Oh, no, not now. I shall have to tell my tale to the police. But between ourselves, if it were not for the convincing evidence of this wound of mine, I should be surprised if they believed my statement, for it's a very extraordinary one, and I have not much in the way of proof with which to back it up. And even if they believe me, the clues which I can give them are so vague that it is a question of whether justice will be done. Ha! I cried. If it is anything in the nature of a problem which you desire to see solved, I should strongly recommend you come to my friend Mr. Sherlock Holmes before you go to the official police. Oh, I have heard of that fellow, answered my visitor, and I should be very glad if he would take up the matter. Though, of course, I must use the official police as well. Would you give me an introduction to him? I'll do better. I'll take you round to him myself. I should be immensely obliged to you. We'll call a cab and go together. We shall just be in time to have a little breakfast with him. Do you feel equal to it? Yes. I shall not feel easy until I have told my story. Then my servant will call the cab, and I shall be with you in an instant. I rushed upstairs, explained the matter shortly to my wife, and in 5 minutes was inside a hansom, driving with my new acquaintance to Baker Street. Sherlock Holmes was, as I expected, lounging about his sitting room in his dressing gown, reading the agony column of the Times and smoking his before-breakfast pipe, which was composed of all the plugs and dottles left from his smokes of the day before, all carefully dried and collected in the corner of the mantelpiece. He received us in his quietly genial fashion, ordered fresh rashers and eggs, and joined us in a hearty meal. When it was concluded, he settled our new acquaintance upon the sofa, placed a pillow beneath his head, and laid a glass of brandy and water within his reach, going all Jonathan Ross. It is easy to see that your experience has been no common one, Mr. Hatherley, said he. Pray lie down there and make yourself absolutely at home. Tell us what you can, but stop when you are tired, and keep up your strength with a little stimulant. Thank you, said my patient. But I have felt another man since the doctor bandaged me, and I think that your breakfast has completed the cure. I shall take up as little of your valuable time as possible, so I shall start at once upon my peculiar experiences. Holmes sat in his big armchair with the weary, heavy-lidded expression which veiled his keen and eager nature, while I sat opposite him, and we listened in silence to the strange story which our visitor detailed to us. You must know, said he, that I am an orphan and a bachelor, residing alone in lodgings in London. By profession I am a hydraulic engineer, and I have had considerable experience of my work during the 7 years that I was apprenticed to Venner and Mason, the well-known firm of Greenwich. 2 years ago, having served my time, and also having come into a fair sum of money through my poor father's death, I determined to start a business for myself and took professional chambers in Victoria Street. I suppose that everyone finds his first independent start in business a dreary experience. To me it has been exceptionally so. During 2 years I have had 3 consultations and 1 small job, and that is absolutely all my profession has brought me. My gross takings amount to £27 and 10 shillings. Every day from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon I waited in my little den until at last my heart began to sink and I came to believe that I should never have any practice at all. Yesterday, however, just as I was thinking of leaving the office, my clerk entered to say there was a gentleman waiting who wished to see me upon business. He brought a card, too, with the name Colonel Lysander Stark engraved upon it. Close at his heels came the Colonel himself, a man rather over the middle size, but of an exceeding thinness. I do not need to think that I have ever seen so thin a man. His whole face sharpened away into a nose and chin, and the skin of his cheeks was drawn quite tensely over his outstanding bones. Yet this emaciation seemed to be his natural habit, and due to no disease, for his eye was bright and his step brisk, and his bearing assured. He was plainly but neatly dressed, and his age, I should judge, would be nearer 40 than 30. "Mr. Hatherley," said he, with something of a German accent, "you have been recommended to me, Mr. Hatherley, as being a man who is not only proficient in his profession, but is also discreet and capable of preserving a secret." I bowed, feeling as flattered as any young man would at such an address. "May I ask who it is that gave me such a character?" "Well, perhaps it is better that I should not tell you that just at this moment. I have it from the same source that you are both an orphan and a bachelor, and are residing in London." "That is quite correct," I answered. "But you will excuse me if I say I cannot see how all this bears upon my professional qualifications. I understand that it was a professional matter that you wished to speak to me about." "Undoubtedly so. But you will find that all I say is really to the point. I have a professional commission for you, but absolute secrecy is quite essential. Absolute secrecy, you understand. And of course we may expect that more from a man who is alone than from one who lives in the bosom of his family." "If I promise to keep a secret," said I, "you may absolutely depend upon my doing so." He looked very hard at me as I spoke, and it seemed to me that I had never seen so suspicious and questioning an eye. "Do you promise, then?" said he at last. "Yes, I promise. Absolute and complete silence before, during, and after, no reference to the matter at all, in word or writing either." "I have already given you my word." "Very good." He sprang up, and darting like lightning across the room, he flung open the door. The passage outside was empty. "That's all right," said he, coming back. "I know that clerks are sometimes curious as to their masters' affairs. Now we can talk in safety." He drew up his chair very close to mine and began to stare at me again with the same questioning and thoughtful look. A feeling of repulsion and something akin to fear had begun to rise within me at the strange antics of this fleshless man. Even my dread of losing a client could not restrain me from showing my impatience. "I beg that you will state your business, sir," said I. "My time is of value." Heaven forgive me for that last sentence, but the words came to my lips. "How would 50 guineas for a night's work suit you?" he asked. "Most admirably." "I say a night's work, but an hour's work would be nearer the mark. I simply want your opinion about a hydraulic stamping machine which has got out of gear. If you show us what is wrong, we shall soon set it right ourselves. What do you think of such a commission as that?" "Well, the work appears to be light and the pay munificent." "Precisely, sir. We shall want you to come to-night by the last train." "Where to?" "To Eyford in Berkshire. It is a little place by the borders of Oxfordshire, within 7 miles of Reading. There is a train from Paddington which would bring you there about 11:15. "Very good. I shall come down in a carriage to meet you." "There is a drive, then?" "Yes, our little place is quite out in the country. It's a good 7 miles from Eyford Station." "Then we can hardly get there before midnight. I suppose there will be no chance of a train back. I should be compelled to stop for the night." "Yes, we could easily give you a shakedown." "That's a bit of slang." "Well, it is very awkward. Could I not come at some more convenient hour?" We have judged it best that you should come late. It is to recompense you for any inconvenience that we are paying you, a young and unknown man, a fee which would buy an opinion from the very heads of your profession. Still, of course, you would like it. If you would like to draw out the business, there is plenty of time to do so. I thought of the 50 guineas, and how very useful they would be to me. Not at all, said I. I should be very happy to accommodate your wishes. I should like, however, to understand a little more clearly what it is that you wish me to do. Quite so. It is very natural that the pledge of secrecy which we have extracted from you should have aroused your curiosity. I have no wish to commit you to anything without your knowing, well, without your having it all laid out before you. I suppose that we are absolutely safe from eavesdroppers? Entirely. Then the matter stands thus. You are probably aware that Fuller's earth is a valuable product, and that it is only found in one or two places in England. I have heard so. Some time ago I bought a small place, a very small place, within 10 miles of Reading. I was fortunate enough to discover that there was a deposit of Fuller's earth in one of my fields. On examining it, however, I found that this deposit was comparatively small, and that it formed a link between two very much larger ones upon the left and right, both of them, however, in the grounds of my neighbours. These good people were absolutely ignorant that their land contained that which was quite as valuable as a gold mine. Naturally, it was of my interest to buy their land before they discovered its true value, but unfortunately I had no capital by which I could do this. I took a few of my friends into the secret, however, and they suggested we should quietly and secretly work our little deposit, and that in this way we should earn the money which would enable us to buy the neighbouring fields. This we have been doing for some time, and in order to help in our operations we erected a hydraulic press. This press, as I have already explained, has got out of order, and we wish your advice upon the subject. We guard our secret very jealously, however, and if it once became known that we had hydraulic engineers coming to our little house, it would soon rouse inquiry, and then, if the facts came out, it would be good-bye to any chance of getting those fields and carrying out our plans. That is why I have made you promise me that you will not tell a human being that you are going to Eyford tonight. I hope I make it all plain. I quite follow you, sir. I quite follow you, sir, I said. The only point which I could not understand is what you could make use of a hydraulic press in excavating Fuller's earth for, which, as I understand, is dug out like a gravel from a pit. Ah, he said carelessly, we have our own process. We compress the earth into bricks so as to remove them without revealing what they are, but that is a mere detail. I have taken you fully into my confidence now, Mr. Hatherley, and I have shown you how I trust you. He rose as he spoke. I shall expect you then at Eyford at 11:15. I shall certainly be there. And not a word to a soul. He looked at me with a long, last, questioning gaze, and then, pressing my hand in a cold, dank grasp, he hurried from the room. Well, when I came to think it all over in cold blood, I was very much astonished, as you may both think, at this sudden commission which had been entrusted to me. On the one hand, of course, I was glad for the fee that was at least tenfold what I should have asked, had I set the price upon my own services. And it was possible that this order might lead to other ones. On the other hand, the face and manner of my patron made such an unpleasant impression upon me that I could not think that his explanation of the Fuller's earth was sufficient to explain the necessity for my coming at midnight, and his extreme anxiety lest I should tell anyone about my errand. However, I threw all fears to the wind, ate a hearty supper, and drove to Paddington, and started off having obeyed to the letter the injunction as to hold my tongue. Oh dear, my phone's picking that up. Sorry. Anyway, where was I? T-board. At Reading I had to change not only my carriage but my station. However, I was in time for the last train to Eyford, and I reached the dim-lit little station after 11 o'clock. I was the only passenger who got out there, and there was no one upon the platform save a single sleepy porter with a lantern. As I passed through the wicket gate, however, I found my acquaintance of the morning waiting in the shadow upon the other side. Without a word, he grasped my arm and hurried me into a carriage, the door of which was standing open. He drew up the windows on either side, tapped on the woodwork, and away we went as fast as the horse could go. "One horse?" interjected Holmes. "Yes, only one." "Did you observe the colour?" "Yes, I saw it by the side lights when I was stepping in. It was a chestnut." "Tired looking or fresh?" "Oh, fresh and glossy." "Thank you. I'm sorry to have interrupted you. Pray continue your most interesting statement." Away we went then, and we drove for at least an hour. Colonel Lysander Stark had said that it was only 7 miles, but I should think from the rate that we seemed to go, and the time that we took, it must have been nearer 12. He sat at my side in silence all the time, and I was aware, more than once when I glanced in his direction, that he was looking at me with great intensity. The country roads seemed to be not very good in that part of the world, for we launched and jolted terribly. I tried to look out of the windows to see something of where we were, but they were made of frosted glass, and I could not make out anything save the occasional bright blur of a passing light. Now and then I hazarded some remark to break the monotony of the journey, but the Colonel answered only in monosyllables, and the conversation soon flagged. At last, however, the bumping of the road was exchanged for the crisp smoothness of a gravel drive, and the carriage came to a stand. Colonel Lysander Stark sprang out, and, as I followed after him, pulled me swiftly into a porch which gaped in front of us. We stepped, as it were, right out of the carriage and into the hall, so that I failed to catch the most fleeting glance of the front of the house. The instant that I had crossed the threshold of the store, the door slammed behind. Oh dear, I'm losing it. The instant that I had crossed the threshold of the door, the instant that I had crossed the threshold, the door slammed heavily behind us, and I faintly heard the rattle of the wheels as the carriage drove away. Finally! It was pitch dark inside the house, and the Colonel fumbled about looking for matches and muttering under his breath. Suddenly a door opened at the other end of the passage, and a long golden bar of light shot out in our direction. It grew broader, and a woman appeared with a lamp in her hand, which she held above her head. Pushing her face forward and peering at us, I could see that she was pretty, and from the gloss which the light shone upon her dark dress, I knew that it was rich material. She spoke a few words in a foreign tongue, in a tone as though asking a question, and when my companion answered in a gruff monosyllable, she gave such a start that the lamp nearly fell from her hand. Colonel Stark went up to her, whispered something in her ear, and then, pushing her back into the room from whence she had come, he walked towards me again with the lamp in his hand. "Perhaps you will have the kindness to wait in this room for a few minutes," said he, throwing open another door. It was a quiet, little, plainly furnished room, with a round table in the centre, on which were several German books. Colonel Stark laid down the lamp on the top of the harmonium beside the door. "I shall not keep you waiting an instant," said he, and vanished into the darkness. I glanced at the books upon the table, and despite my ignorance of German, I could see that 2 of them were treatises on science, the others being volumes of poetry. Then I walked across the room to the window, hoping that I might catch some glimpse of the countryside, but an oak shutter, heavily barred, was folded across it. It was a wonderfully silent house. There was an old clock ticking loudly somewhere in the passage, but otherwise everything was deadly still. A vague feeling of unease began to steal over me. Who were these German people, and what were they doing living in this strange, out-of-the-way place? And where was the place? I was 10 miles or so from Hereford. That was all I knew. But whether north, south, or east or west, I had no idea. For that matter, Reading, or possibly other large towns, were within that radius, so the place might not be so secluded after all. Yet it was quite certain, from the absolute stillness, that we were in the country. I paced up and down the room, humming a tune under my breath to keep my spirits, and feeling that I was thoroughly earning my 50-guinea fee. Suddenly, without any preliminary sound, in the midst of the utter stillness, the door of my room swung open suddenly. The woman was standing in the aperture, the darkness of the hall behind her, the yellow light from a lamp beating upon her eager and beautiful face. I could see at a glance that she was sick with fear, and the sight sent a chill to my own heart. She held up one shaking finger to warn me to be silent. She shot a few whispered words of broken English at me, her eyes glancing back like those of a frightened horse into the gloom behind her. "You should go," said she. trying hard, as it seemed to me, to speak calmly. I would go. I should not stay here. There is no good for you to do. But, madam, said I have not yet done what I came for. I cannot possibly leave until I have seen the machine. It is not worth your while to wait, she went on. You can pass through the door. No one hinders. And then, seeing that I smiled and shook my head, she suddenly threw aside her constraint and made a step forward, with her hands wrung together. For the love of heaven, she whispered, get away from here before it's too late. But I am somewhat headstrong by nature, and the more ready to engage in an affair, and the more ready to engage in an affair when there is some obstacle in the way. I thought of my 50-guinea fee, of my wearisome journey, and the unpleasant night which seemed to be before me. Was it all to go for nothing? Why should I slink away without having carried out my commission, and without the payment which was my due? This woman might, for all I knew, be a monomaniac. That's a new one on me. With a stout bearing, therefore, though her manner had shaken me more than I cared to confess, I still shook my head, and declared my intention of remaining where I was. She was about to renew her entreaties when a door slammed overhead, and the sound of several footsteps were heard upon the stairs. She listened for an instant, threw up her hands with a despairing gesture, and vanished as suddenly and as noiselessly as she had come. The newcomers were Colonel Lysander Stark and a short, thick man with a chinchilla beard growing out of the creases of his double chin, who was introduced to me as Mr. Ferguson. What on earth is a chinchilla beard? Something to look up. This is my secretary and manager, said the Colonel. By the way, I was under the impression that I left this door shut just now. I fear that you have felt the draught. On the contrary, said I. I opened the door myself because I felt the room to be a little close. He shot one of his suspicious looks at me. Perhaps we had better proceed to the business, then, said he. Mr. Ferguson and I will take you up to see the machine. I had better put my hat on, I suppose. Oh, no, it's in the house. What? You dig the fuller's earth in the house? No, we only compress it in the house. But never mind that. All we wish to do is examine the machine, and for you to let us know what is wrong with it. We went upstairs together, the Colonel first with the lamp, the fat manager and I behind. It was a labyrinth of an old house, with corridors, passages, narrow winding staircases, and little low doors and thresholds, of which were hollowed by generations who had crossed them. There were no carpets and no sign of any furniture above the ground floor, while the plaster was peeling off the walls and the damp breaking through in green, unhealthy blotches. I tried to put on as unconcerned an air as possible, but I had not forgotten the warnings of the lady, though, even though I disregarded them, I kept an eye out upon my two companions. Ferguson appeared to be a morose and silent man, but I could see the little that he said was at least I could see from the little that he said that he was at least a fellow countryman. Colonel Lysander Stark stopped at the last before a low door which he unlocked. Within was a small square room in which the three of us could hardly get in one at a time. Ferguson remained outside, and the Colonel ushered me in. We are now, said he, actually within the hydraulic press, and it will be a particularly unpleasant thing for us if anyone were to turn it on. The ceiling of this small chamber, really, is the end of the descending piston, and it comes down with the force of many tons upon this metal floor. There are small lateral columns of water outside which receive the force, and which transmit and multiply it in a manner which is familiar to you. The machine goes readily enough, but there is some stiffness in the working of it, and it has lost a little of its force. Perhaps you will have the goodness to look over and to show us how we can set it right. I took the lamp from him, and I examined the machine very thoroughly. It was indeed a gigantic one, and capable of exercising enormous pressure. When I passed outside, however, and pressed down the levers which controlled it, I knew at once by the whistling sound that there was a slight leakage which allowed a regurgitation of water through one of the side cylinders. An examination showed that one of the india-rubber bands which bound the head of a driving rod had shrunk so as not to quite fit the socket along which it worked. This was clearly the cause of the loss of power, and I pointed it out to my companions, who followed my remarks very carefully and asked several practical questions as to how they should proceed to set it right. When I had made it clear to them, I returned to the main chamber of the machine and took a look at it to satisfy my own curiosity. It was obvious at a glance that the story of the fuller's earth was the merest fabrication, for it would be absurd to suppose that so powerful an engine would be designed for so inadequate a purpose. The walls were of wood, but the floor consisted of a large iron trough, and when I came to examine it, I could see a crust of metallic deposit all over it. I stooped and was scraping at this to see exactly what what it was when I heard a muttered exclamation in German and saw the cadaverous face of the colonel looking down at me. "What are you doing there?" he asked. I felt angry at having been tricked by so elaborate a story, that which he had told me. "I was admiring your fuller's earth," said I. "I think I should better be able to advise you as to your machine if I knew the exact purpose for which it was used." The instant I uttered these words, I regretted the rashness of my speech. His face set hard, and a baleful light sprang up in his grey eyes. "Very well," said he, "you shall know all about the machine." He took a step back, slammed the little door, and turned the key in the lock. I rushed towards it to pull at the handle, but it was quite secure, and did not give the least to my kicks and shoves. "Hello!" I yelled. "Hello, Colonel! Let me out!" And then suddenly, in the silence, I heard a sound which sent my heart into my mouth. It was the clank of the levers and the swish of the leaking cylinder. He had set the engine at work. The lamp still stood on the floor where I had placed it. When examining the trough, by its light I saw that the black ceiling was coming down upon me, slowly, jerkily, but as none knew better than myself, with a force which must within a minute grind me into a shapeless pulp. I threw myself screaming against the door and dragged with my nails at the lock. I implored the colonel to let me out, but the remorseless clanking of the levers drowned my cries. The ceiling was only a foot or two above my head, and with my hand upraised I could feel its hard, rough surface. Then it flashed through my mind that the pain of death would depend very much upon the position in which I met it. If I lay on my face, the weight would come upon my spine, and I shuddered to think of that dreadful snap. Either the other way, perhaps. Easier the other way, perhaps. And yet I had the nerve to lie, and had I the nerve to lie and look at that deadly black shadow wavering down upon me? Already I was unable to stand erect, when my eye caught something which brought a gush of hope back to my heart. I have a filthy mind, I really do. Already I was unable to stand erect, when my eye caught something which brought a gush of hope back to my heart. Oh dear. Somehow I'm starting to think that I'm the problem. I have said that though the floor and ceiling were of iron, the walls were of wood. As I gave a last hurried glance around, I saw a thin line of yellow light between the two boards, which broadened and broadened as a small panel was pushed back. For an instant I could hardly believe that here was indeed a door which led away from death. The next instant I threw myself through, and lay half fainting upon the other side. The panel had closed again behind me, but the crash of the lamp, and a few moments afterwards the clang of the two slabs of metal, told me how narrow my escape was. How narrow had been my escape. I was recalled to myself by a frantic plucking at my wrist, and I found myself lying upon the stone floor of a narrow corridor, while a woman bent over me and tugged at me with her left hand. She held a candle in her right. It was the same good friend whose warning I had so foolishly rejected. "Come, come," she cried breathlessly. "They will be here in a moment. They will see that you are not there. But do not waste the so precious time, but come." This time, at least, I did not scorn her advice. I staggered to my feet and ran with her along the corridor and down a winding stair. The latter led to another broad passage, and just as we reached it, we heard the sound of running feet and the shouting of two voices, one answering the other from the floor on which we were, and from one answering the other from the floor on which we were, and from the one beneath. One from the one. Oh dear. That sentence is terrible. One answering the other from the floor on which we were, and from the one beneath. No, that doesn't make sense at all to me. It's probably a bit typed up wrong. Anyway, my guide stopped and looked about her like one who is at her wit's end. Then she threw open a door which led into a bedroom, through the window of which the moon was shining brightly. "It is your only chance," said she. "It is high, but it may be that you can jump it." As she spoke, a light sprang into view at the further end of the passage, and I saw the lean figure of Colonel Lysander Stark rushing forward with a lantern in one hand and a weapon like a butcher's cleaver in the other. I rushed across the bedroom, flung open the window, and looked out. How quiet and sweet and wholesome the garden looked in the moonlight, and it could not be more than 30 feet down. I clambered out upon the sill, but I hesitated to jump until I until I should have heard what passed between my saviour and the ruffian who pursued me. If she were ill-used, then at any risks I was determined to go back to her assistance. The thought had hardly flashed through my mind before he was at the door, pushing his way past her, but she threw her arms around him and tried to hold him back. "Fritz, Fritz!" she cried in English. "Remember your promise after the last time. You said it should not be again. He will be silent. He will be silent." "You are mad, Elise," he shouted, struggling to break away from her. You will be the ruin of us. He has seen too much. Let me pass, I say." I would do a German accent, but I really, really can't. He dashed her to one side, and rushing to the window, cut at me with his heavy weapon. I had let myself go, and was hanging by the hands to the sill when his blow fell. I was conscious of a dull pain, and my grip loosened, and I fell to the garden below. I was shaken, but not hurt by the fall, so I picked myself up and rushed among the bushes, as hard as I could run, for I understood that I was far from being out of danger yet. Suddenly, however, as I ran, a deadly dizziness and sickness came over me. I glanced down at my hand, which was throbbing painfully, and then, for the first time, saw that my thumb had been cut off, and that the blood was pouring from my wound. I endeavoured to tie my handkerchief around it, but there came a sudden buzzing in my ears, and the next moment I fell in a dead faint among the rose bushes. How long I remained unconscious I cannot tell. It must have been a very long time, for the moon had sunk, and a bright morning was breaking when I came to myself. My clothes were sodden with dew, and my coat sleeve was drenched with blood from my wounded thumb. The smarting of it recalled in an instant all the particulars of my night's adventure, and I sprang to my feet, with a feeling that I might hardly yet be safe from my pursuers. But to my astonishment, when I came to look around me, neither the house nor the garden were to be seen. I had been lying in an angle of the hedge close to the high road, and just a little lower down was a long building, which proved, upon my approaching it, to be the very station at which I had arrived upon the previous night. Were it not for the ugly wound upon my hand, all that had passed those dreadful hours might have been an evil dream. Half dazed, I went to the station and asked for the morning train. There would be one to Reading in less than an hour. The same porter that was on duty, I found, as had been there when I arrived. I inquired of him whether he had ever heard of Colonel Lysander Stark. The name was strange to him. Had he observed a carriage the night before waiting for me? No, he had not. Was there a police station anywhere nearby? There was one about 3 miles off. It was too far for me to go, weak and ill as I was. I determined to wait until I got back to town before telling my story to the police. It was a little past 6 when I arrived, so I went first to have my wound dressed, and then the doctor was kind enough to bring me along here. I put the case into your hands, and shall do exactly what you advised. I put the case into your hands, and shall do exactly what you advise. There we go. I can finally stop talking in that god-awful voice. It was a mistake choosing that. Oh, God. The voice is infuriating to the Strahd. Right. We both sat in silence for some time after listening to this extraordinary narrative. Then Sherlock Holmes pulled down from a shelf one of the ponderous commonplace books in which he placed his cuttings. "Here is an advertisement which will interest you," said he. "It appears in all the papers about a year ago. Listen to this. Lost on the 9th instant. Mr. Jeremiah Hayling, aged 26, a hydraulic engineer, left his lodgings at 10 o'clock at night. Has not been heard of since. Was dressed in, etc., etc." Ha! That represents the last time that the Colonel needed to have his machine overhauled, I fancy. "Good heavens!" cried my patient. "Then that explains what the girl said." "Undoubtedly. It is quite clear that the Colonel was a cool and desperate man, who was absolutely determined that nothing should stand in the way of his little game, like those out-and-out pirates who will leave no survivor from a captured ship. Well, every moment now is precious, so if you will feel equal to it, we shall go down to Scotland Yard at once, as a preliminary to starting for Eyford." Some 3 hours or so afterwards, we were all in the train together, bounding from Reading to the little Berkshire village. There were Sherlock Holmes, the hydraulic engineer, Inspector Bradstreet of Scotland Yard, a plain-clothes man, and myself. Bradstreet had spread out an ordnance map of the county upon the seat, and was busy with his compasses drawing a circle with Eyford as the centre. Now I've got to try and remember what voice I gave Bradford. "There you are," said he. "Our circle is drawn at a radius of 10 miles from the village. The place we want must be somewhere near that line. You said 10 miles, I think, sir." It was a good hour's drive." "And you think they brought you back all that way when you were unconscious?" "They must have done. I have a confused memory, too, of being lifted and conveyed somewhere." What I can't understand, said I, is why they should have spared you when they found you lying fainted in the garden. Perhaps the villain was softened by the woman's entreaties. I hardly think that likely. I never saw a more inexorable face in my life. Oh, we shall clear all that up soon. Oh, we shall clear it. Oh, we shall clear all that up soon enough, said Bradstreet. Well, I have drawn my circle. I only wish to know at what point upon it the folk that we are searching for are to be found. I think I could lay my finger upon it, said Holmes quietly. Really now, cried the inspector. You have formed your opinion. Come now, we shall see who agrees with you. I say it is south, for the country is more deserted there. And I say east, said my patient. I am for west, remarked the plainclothes man. There are several quiet little villages up there. And I am for north, said I, because there are no hills there, and our friend says that he did not notice the carriage go up any. Come now, cried the inspector, laughing. It's a very pretty diversity of opinion. We have boxed the compass among us. Who do you give your casting vote to? You are all wrong. Well, we can't all be wrong. Oh, yes, you can. This is my point. He placed his finger in the centre of the circle. This is where we shall find them. But the 20-mile drive, gasped Hatherley. 6 out and 6 back. Nothing simpler. You say yourself that the horse was fresh and glossy when you got in. How could it be if it had gone 12 miles over heavy roads? Well, indeed, it is a likely ruse, observed Bradstreet thoughtfully. Of course, there can be no doubt as to the nature of this gang. None at all. They are coiners on a large scale, and have used the machine to form an amalgam which has taken the place of silver. We have known for some time that a clever gang was at work, said the inspector. They have been turning out half-crowns by the thousand. We even traced them as far as Reading could get no further, for they are covered by their traces in a way that showed them that they are very old hands. But now, thanks to this lucky chance, I think that we have got them right enough. But the inspector was mistaken, for those criminals were not destined to fall into the hands of justice. As we rolled into Iford Station, we saw a gigantic column of smoke which streamed up from behind a small clump of trees in the neighbourhood, and hung like an immense ostrich feather over the landscape. A house on fire? Asked Bradstreet as the train steamed off again. Yes, sir, said the station master. When did it break out? I heard it was during the night, sir, but it has got worse, and the whole place is ablaze now. Whose house is it? Dr. Beecher's. Tell me then. Tell me, broke in the engineer. Is Dr. Beecher a German, very thin? Oh, wait. Tell me, broke in the engineer. Is Dr. Beecher a German, very thin, with a long, sharp nose? The station master laughed heartily. No, sir, Dr. Beecher is an Englishman. There ain't a man in the parish who has a bit better lined waistcoat, but he has a gentleman staying with him as a patient, as I understand, who is a foreigner, and he looks as if a little good Berkshire beef would do him no harm. The station master had not finished his speech before we were all hastening in the direction of the fire. The road topped a low hill, and there was a widespread whitewashed building in front of us, spouting fire at every chink and window, while in the garden in front of us 3 fire engines were vainly striving to keep the flames under. That's it, cried Hatherley in intense excitement. There is the gravel drive, and there are the rose bushes I lay in. The second window is the one I jumped from. Well, at least, said Holmes, you have had your revenge upon them. There can be no question that it was your oil lamp, which, when it was crushed into the press, set fire to the wooden walls, though no doubt they were too excited in the chase after you to observe it at the time. Now keep your eyes open in this crowd for your friends of last night, though I very much fear they are a good 100 miles off by now. And Holmes's fears came to be realized, for from that day to this, no word has ever been heard of either the beautiful woman, the sinister German, or the morose Englishman. Early that morning, a peasant had met a cart containing several people and some very bulky boxes driving rapidly in the direction of Reading, but there all traces of the fugitives disappeared, and even Holmes's ingenuity failed ever to recover the least clue as to their whereabouts. The firemen had been very much perturbed at the strange arrangements which they had found within, and still more so by discovering a newly severed human thumb upon the window-sill of the second floor. About sunset, however, their efforts were at last successful, and they subdued the flames, but not before the roof had fallen in, and the whole place had been reduced to such an absolute ruin, save some twisted cylinders and iron piping, that not a trace of the machinery which had cost our unfortunate acquaintance so dearly, not a trace remained of the machinery which had cost our unfortunate acquaintance so dearly. Large masses of nickel and tin were discovered stored in an outhouse, but no coins were to be found, which may have explained the presence of those bulky boxes which had been referred to already. Our hydraulic engineer had been conveyed from the garden to the spot where he recovered his senses. How our hydraulic engineer, dear, I'm doing terribly now, had been conveyed from the garden to the spot where he recovered his senses might have remained forever a mystery, were it not for the soft mould, which told us a very plain tale. He had evidently been carried down by two persons, one of whom had remarkably small feet, and the other unusually large ones. On the whole, it was most probably the silent Englishman, being less bold or less murderous than his companion, who had assisted the woman to bear the unconscious man out of the way of danger. "Well," said our engineer ruefully, as we took our seats once more to return to London, "it has been a pretty business for me. I've lost my thumb, and I've lost 50 guineas. I've lost a 50-guinea fee, and what have I gained?" "Experience," said Holmes, laughing. "Indirectly, it may be of value, you know. You have only to put it into words to gain the reputation of being excellent company for the remainder of your existence." Well, that is the end of the adventure of the engineer's thumb. So I will just let's change the screen capture to full screen application. Let's get this open, and then that should switch to screen capture. No, of course it's not. It's entire screen. There we go. Right then, so I am just going to skim through and look up some stuff, and then I'm going to change the stream title and see if anyone wants to show up and give me some ridiculous nonsense to spout. Probably no one will, but a man can hope. Let's see. Just looking for. I highlight stuff as I go through. So let's see what I could do. Actually, is if let's see. If I open this, and open this on top of it, we can have a chat room. There we go. Let's see chat at the same time. Let me see. I've got to be very delicate with this. There we go. Indian rubber. I'm assuming Indian rubber is just rubber made from oil imported from India. Natural rubber that came from sap. Oh, I see. So it's gum rubber. Okay. Interesting. And we've got a chinchilla beard. Which is none of these seem accurate. Let's see. It's from the Adventures of the Engineer's Thumb. No. Legitimately, I don't think I can find out what it means. That's frustrating. Well, we've got Monomaniac. Means exhibiting an exaggerated or obsessive enthusiasm for a preoccupation with one thing. Yeah, it's just obsessively focused, I guess. Be obsessed. I'm guessing that harmonium is just an old word for a harmonia. Nope. It's a pump organ. It's like a little hand organ. Not hand organ. It's a small organ, basically. And then we've got Fuller's Earth. It's a term for various clays that we are used as an absorbent, filter, and bleaching agent. Okay, yeah, so it's like a, yeah, it's just a material that's got chemical value. Cause something to fall or settle by shaking. A makeshift bed. Hey, I bet that's what it is. I bet it's the makeshift bed. So I'll content myself with that. And then currency conversion. Right, so 50 guineas. What is a guinea? A guinea is a coin. And that's a coin. I want to know is the value of a guinea. And where the gold was used as a source. Machine struck gold coin, originally representing a value of 20 shillings, equal to £1. But yeah, okay. So we'll say it's in pounds. So then we want our currency converter. And then we'll say this was 1889, I believe, was the year this was set in. So that's, I mean, 90s would be closer. Let's be 1890, 1790. 1890 would be closer. So we'll go with 1890. And then it's 50 guineas, so £50. So that's £4,000. That's for, yeah. You can see why he would be tempted. Plugs and dottles. Plugs and dottles. Remnant of a tobacco. Yeah, well, that's what I thought it was, but it can never hurt to check. Don't think there's anything. No. Carbalized bandages. Carbalized bandages. Sure, let's just go with the definition of carbolize. Phenolate for the love of sanity. It's not a helpful definition. Salt of phenol. So it's okay, so the disinfected bandages, basically. Don't want to calicize it. Library chair. I have to assume. Yeah, I don't think it's a specific step chair. Oh, it's a ladder chair. Okay. There you go. A moment. I just had to sneeze. Allergic to chairs, apparently. Right. Heather tweed. It's just a form of tweed, I'm assuming. Yeah. And then toot. British. A person who buys up tickets for an event to resell them. Informer. Yeah, I'm assuming it's. Yeah, it's like a. It's just a sort of slang for. Bohemian habits. Community living, artistic endeavours while rejecting the stigma and strains of modern society, such as money and social etiquette. Well, that certainly describes Holmes. Right, let me jump down to the next one, The Adventure of the Noble Bachelor. And then, okay, so I will switch back to main screen. I will close The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Right. So, plan now is to. I will switch back to starting soon again in a moment. Yeah, there's no one there. And then I'm going to change up the tags and the stream title and see if anyone shows up. To do that, I'm just going to mute for a while. Let's see. Times New Roman will have to do, I think. And we'll set that to 30 minutes. And we'll switch. Go. Excellent. And that is the suggestion. Excellent. Let's see. I don't need you. Don't need you. It's got a long button. Alright. Well, I guess we wait now. I should probably be muted for this, but what can I do? I can't. The problem is, the viewer counter consistently says that there's one viewer, which means that if someone actually shows up, I won't know. And if they show up and the stream's completely silent, they're much less likely to say anything. So I'm not going to do other than sit here eating crackers and hummus. Well, soon I'll be drinking tea, as I'm nearly done with the hummus. Oh well. That didn't last very long. What am I going to do for half an hour? I suppose my problem is that I don't have a pair of large breasts to draw people in. Oh dear. That, and I imagine I am quite buried in the bottom. There's presently no one here, so let me put I'll just put a note on the add text. Due to the Convenience. That's definitely not how you spell that. Inconvenience. Yeah, I just doubled them. Inconvenience. Inconvenience. That's still wrong. Okay, how do you spell inconvenience? I feel ridiculous now. Inconvenience. Ah. There we go. Alright, let's make that a bit bigger. Center it. Is it better black? No. Well, like blue or something. I think that's about the best visibility I can get. Oh well. Got to try, haven't you? Yeah. Oh. What I'll have to do, I'll do that. I'll do that. Oh, yeah, I can still see the. Now then, let's see. Cat, yes. I did wonder. Let's see. Okay, yeah, there it is. Well, I might just read a book while I wait. Seems a bit ridiculous, but I suppose in a sense I'm essentially sort of fishing. And I'm basically just sitting around waiting to see if anything happens. Yeah, my grandmother's back. And unfortunately, due to my um, terrible internet, I have to go to my grandmother's house to stream because I can't get a good internet connection anywhere else. Well, I probably could get it in other places, but nowhere else that I have actual access to. So, this is much better than the other one. Drinking. I've got a couple of Twinnings blends that I got from my grandmother, my other grandmother. But one of them is I don't know what it is about it, but it's just a little bit off. Oh dear. I'm feeling particularly shameless, I wonder. I'm not doing that. There is a sexy voice tab, but I'm not doing that. I'm not that shameless. I'm quite shameless, but I'm not that shameless. Yeah. The weather is done. I can't believe I'm making small talk with no one. It's ridiculous. The weather is truly appalling at the moment. It's just hideous. Although it's not too bad not being inside it, or well, outside in it. Which is a weird turn of phrase when you think about it. Hmm. Oh well. Yeah. Oh dear. Hmm. I feel ridiculous doing this. Oh well. And quite frankly, I would consider it a miracle if anyone turned up at all. I mean, oh, there's no point in sitting doing that. Hmm. I don't know what I'm going to call this part in the chapters of the VOD. Man quietly drinks tea for half an hour, probably. Oh dear. If you are watching this on the VOD, somehow managed to get to this middle part, I truly can't understand why. Unless it's like tea drinking ASMR or something. You're treating it like it anyway. I will say, I do plan to now to do this every stream now, so you're welcome to come to any future ones. Very welcome. Make it a bit less tedious, if nothing else. This isn't fair. I mean, I'm talking to myself, but I can't talk to myself normally. Oh, this is unreasonable because someone might hear it and be dreadfully embarrassing. Limited to a very specific kind of talking to myself. It's just not fair at all. I wonder if there's a creaky chair tag. I bet there is. So, I'll pour some more tea. Have a look. Something I don't want to search. No. No. It is what it is. Halfway through. Good lord. I'm looking at my own videos. God, yeah. Look at that. None of those extra views. Actually, much. No. Well, whatever. One moment. Right. Back. Don't know if that got picked up, any of that. It shouldn't have done because I muted eventually. Yeah. I can't imagine counts there. It shouldn't count me. Now I'm kind of curious because I saw that there is a sexy voice tag. I wonder if anyone's actually using it. Sexy voice. No, no one is shameless enough to use the sexy voice tag. Color me surprised. Oh dear. Well, this is certainly a way to pass half an hour. Not a particularly good way, I'll have to be honest, but it's a way. What can I do? Oh dear. Let's see. I'll see what I'll do. Large. Yeah, this is the one. I used to play these all the time. I used to be quite good at them actually. Right then. Let's see, I'll have to zoom out. Let's see, the shark's eye shell was found 3 years before the shell found in Jamaica. Let's see, so Jamaica cannot be the increments of 3, so Jamaica can't be that one. And the shark's eye shell can't be that one. Before the shell found it, no, that's wrong. Other way around. A long time since I've done one of these. Of the shell found in Puerto Rico, and the spotted key shell, one is white and yellow, the other was found in 1992. 1992 has to be, yeah, but they're in different categories, so that's a pain in the ass. Right. The blue and white shell was found 6 years after. I don't know how to pronounce that, I have to be honest. Right, so blue and white is 6 years after. It can't be in the first 6 years. And then this one, Guinea, or whatever, however that is pronounced. The 7 shells are the pink and white shell. Shell found in Tobago, so the pink and white shell cannot be in Tobago. The pink and white shell cannot be 1995. The pink and white shell cannot be 2004. Pink and white shell cannot be 2001. Shell found in Puerto Rico. That's not right. That one. The shell found in Saint Lucia. Right, and then Tobago, I don't know how to pronounce that. That can't be 2004, 2001, or 1995. Neither can Puerto Rico, and neither can St. Lucia. And then I don't think that had any new, but the times. I think that actually does cover everything. Okay. And then the brown and pink seashell was found 6 years after the seashell found in Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico, that brown and pink seashell was found 6 years after the shell found in Puerto Rico. Now we're getting somewhere. So actually, that has to be 6 years after. So if that's there, 1, that's 3, that's 6. So that can't be either of those ones either. It can't be this one. We're making actual progress. Doesn't look like it on my screen, but trust me, I'm making progress. The seashell found in Grenada was found sometime after the coquina shell. I don't know what that is. Right, Grenada is after the coquina shell. Right, well, that helps a little bit. The shark eye shell is either Grenada or Aruba. Shark's eye is either Grenada or Aruba, so it's not any of those. So the shell in Grenada was found sometime after coquina. No, that's not relevant. The shell in Puerto Rico is either brown and yellow or 2004. I can't really rule anything out from that. Actually, I can. It can't be 2004, which means it has to be brown and yellow. So Puerto Rico is brown and yellow. There we go. Progress. Which reminds me to go back. I'll do it later. I'll go back later. So, we're looking in Puerto Rico. Was found the shell found in Puerto Rico was found 6 years before the seashell found in Saint Lucia. Puerto Rico can't be those ones. 6 years before Saint Lucia. So Saint Lucia has to be. It can't be either of these. Okay. Saint Lucia can't be. Puerto Rico can't be this one, I believe. Seashell found in Puerto Rico was found 6 years before the seashell found in Saint Lucia. So Saint Lucia can't be there. It can't be there. Which means Saint Lucia has to be this one. And Puerto Rico has to be that one. Making progress. What else have we got? Let me scroll down just a tiny little bit more. Okay. I've used that one. The seashell found in. The seashell found in 1995 is either Barbuda or Grenada. So 1995 is one of those two. Let me. Yeah. I might just see if I change the screen capture to this one, what's it going to be like. There we go, look at that. And then just go. Oh, that's annoying. Let me change the background on that to. See. That's the full screen capture. No, the other bit, the background. That's all. Edit. How do I select background? There we go. Change to you. And get that back in the middle. So that looks kind of weird. Yeah. There we go. How's that? That is fine. And where was I? Oh, I need a timer, really. Oh, I'll set on a phone. Give it another 10 minutes. Let's see, where did I get to? Barbuda or Grenada, I've done that. The coquina shell was found 12 years before the pink and yellow shell. So the pink and yellow shell, 12 years before the pink and yellow shell. So the pink and yellow shell has to be 3, 6, 9, 12 years after. And let me just add a layer with text. Here. Cancel. Sorry. Not going to show up anyway, are they? Where was I? 12 years after that, so that's that. And then Burkina shell is 12 years before. The seashell found in 2010 wasn't found in Grenada. Okay. The honey cerith shell wasn't found in 2010. The white and yellow shell was found 6 years after the horned turban shell. The horned turban shell is back, and the white and yellow shell is forward. Right. So that's the baseline. Now we keep going. The shark eye shell was found 3 years before the shell found in Jamaica. So Jamaica can be any of these four. The shark eye shell can be almost anything. The shark eye shell was found, 3 years before Jamaica. And the earliest Jamaica can be is there, which means that shark eye shell can't be these two. Of Puerto Rico, the spotted key and the spotted key shell, one is white and yellow, the other was found in 1992. Puerto Rico is brown and yellow, which means that the spotted key shell is white and yellow. The spotted key shell is white and yellow. And Puerto Rico was found in 1992, which I've already done. Which is promising, because that means that those Puerto Rico ones are right, because it's lined up, which is nice. Now, let me go to here, and maybe it would have been easier to add layer, screen share, and then just sort of there we go, put that sort of there-ish. Let's just I do that. Okay, and I'll just do that. That's fine. There we go. I'll change this timer to, say, let's change it to 10 for now. Where was I? The blue and white shell was found 6 years after the coquina shell. I don't believe that helps. Although, okay, the baby's ear shell. Here we go. This actually, I should have noticed this before. So, the baby's ear is 3 years after the coquina shell. Which means, so the baby's ear, I did actually completely miss that clue. The baby's ear can't be this last one. No, wait. Before. And then the blue and white shell was found 6 years after. Right. But the coquina shell is here. It's, let me see. The baby's ear is 3 years after the coquina shell. So the baby's ear can't be either of those. The baby's ear 3 years before, rather. The baby's ear shell was found 3 years before. So it has to be here or here. Yeah. And the coquina can't be this one, actually. So yeah. Coquina can't be this one. So the blue and white can't be. It was found 6 years after. 1, 2. That's 3 years. That's 6 years. So the blue and white can either be 1, 2. So this is the latest the blue and white can be, and this is the earliest the blue and white can be. There we go. And then the 7 shells are the pink and white shell, which I don't think we've got anything for. No. W. No. 1995. No. 2004, 2001, Puerto Rico and St. Lucia. We know St. Lucia is 1998. So we know that 1998 is not 2004. We know that 1998 isn't 2004. Well done, me. Brilliant observation. We know that 1998 isn't the pink and white, which is not currently ruled out. So there we go. That's something. We know that Puerto Rico. We know that. No, that was We know that. We don't know what time Puerto Rico was yet. Oh no, we do. We know it's 1992. We don't know what colour it is. No, we do. It's brown and yellow. We know it's brown and yellow, and we know Puerto Rico is 1992, so we know that the brown and yellow was 1992 as well, don't we? Yeah. I should figure that out myself, really. Tobago only has 2 options. 2007, 2010. What else? Brown and pink was found 6 years after Puerto Rico. We know where Puerto Rico was. Puerto Rico was 1992, so the brown and pink is 1998, which means it's St. Lucia. Which is great. Yeah. We know that the seashell found in Granada came after the Coquina. We know the Coquina can only be these, so Granada can't be before that. It could be any time after it, though. Any time after. The shark eye shell is either Granada or Aruba. That's down here. Yeah. No, we don't know what kind of shell Puerto Rico is yet. The shell found in Puerto Rico is either brown and yellow or 2004. No, we've covered that, I think. We know that it's brown and yellow in 1992. We know that 2004 is not brown and yellow, which I believe is covered by this. We know that, no, that is used. The seashell found in 1995 is either Barbuda or Granada. And we know that 1995 is black and white. There we go. That narrows this down. So that means that we know that black and white is either, where is it? Is either Barbuda or Granada. So that's down here. No, it's not in here. Black and white is either Barbuda or Granada. Yeah, it's not any of them. We know that the Coquina shell was found 12 years before the pink and yellow shell. Pink and yellow has not been covered. And Coquina, that doesn't help. The white and yellow shell was found 6 years after the horned turban. White and yellow. The horned turban. No such luck yet. Well, actually, it was. The white and yellow was found, 6 years after the horned turban. Six years after the horned turban. So the one to Durban cannot be there. And then the Coquina Shell was 12 years after the Pink and Yellow. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, no, so the 12 years before the Pink and Yellow. So the Pink and Yellow can be there. It can be there. But it can't be there anymore. That narrows things down even more. There we go. So, Shark Eye 3 years before Jamaica. Yeah, that's not changed. Blue and White is 6 years after Coquina. Blue and White still just either or. Baby's Ear 3 years before Coquina is still either or. The 7 shells are pink and white. Pink and white. Tobago. Yeah, I already ruled that out. Puerto Rico, St. Lucia, 2001. It's here. 2001, 2004, 1995. Granada just comes any time after. Finish off in 1995. Is either Granada or Barbuda. A white and yellow seashell was found 6 years after the one tone. Okay, I think we are now at the juncture where I'm probably missing something. I think this is probably the point where you start it. You have to start like seeing what happens if you do certain things. So 1995 is either Barbuda or Granada. Well, Granada can't be this one because Granada was found after the Coquina Shell, and the Coquina Shell can't come before this point, which means that can't be Granada, which means that that has to be Barbuda. There we go. Progress. What else? What else? 2000, blue and white is either 2004 or 2001. We know that Barbuda is black and white. That's blue and white. Now that Barbuda is black and white. There we go. It's a bit less telling than I would have hoped. Let's see. The shell found in 1995 is either Barbuda or Granada, so we've done that one. At the time it hit 0 a while ago. Well, I apologise to anyone watching the VOD if you were invested in the end of the puzzle. I'm going to end the stream now and do the setup for the VOD and transfer it over. Anyway, if you've watched to this point, I am surprised. I hope you enjoy. I hope to see you again sometime. That being said, there we go. Now it's actually sat at the top. Right, that being said, I will see you another day. Possibly in just a few hours, because I am going to be streaming Pride and Prejudice later. But for now, goodbye and good day.